Extended sale alert! Hooray! An extension offer to the ongoing London promotional fairs. You asked, we listened. Save over 600,000 naira on your London trip with Airpeace when you connect from our major domestic destinations to London at no extra cost and enjoy an exclusive extra baggage allowance. Economy class promo fares start from 1.2 million naira with an extra 23 kg baggage, while business class fares start from 4.5 million naira with an extra 32 kg baggage. Grab these special fares. Sale period extends till March 31st, 2025 and travel period valid till April 15th, 2025. Fly in style aboard our Boeing 777s with spacious seating and delightful meals. Book now at flyairpeace.com or download the Airpeace app from the Play Store or App Store. Airpeace, your peace is our goal.
The title of this presentation is not original to me. Sport has the power to change the world. How true. It is only the how true that I own and will try to tackle today. Otherwise, the title is a well-known and well-worn quote by a global political icon delivered some 20 years ago in Monte Carlo. As lyrical and beautiful as the words may have sounded to the ears, since then, sport has not changed the world. It has not even impacted the world the way that it should, had the world appreciated and deployed its full power and potential. So, the world took the words of late former President of South Africa, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, as only political rhetoric deriving from emotions of a well-documented period in his life that was impacted by sport. Yet, the Madiba's speech was epochal, expressed before an audience of very famous global athletes at the first Laurea's World Sports Award event in Monte Carlo. These were his words. Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire, the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to the youths in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where there was once despair. It is more powerful than governments in breaking down racial barriers. It laughs in the face of all types of discrimination. The heroes standing with me are examples of that power. They are valiant not only in the playing field, but also in the community, both local and international. They are champions and they deserve the world's recognition. Together, they represent an active, vigorous Hall of Fame, a Hall of Fame that goes out into the world, spreading help, inspiration, and hope. Their legacy will be an international community where the rules of the game are the same for everyone, and behavior is guided by fair play and good sportsmanship. Mandela was not just an ordinary political activist and was not flippant with his words. He was serious. He was a respected sage, probably the most famous human on earth at the time of his speech, a man that gave his life to protesting against the dehumanization of Black persons in his country under one of the most oppressive systems of government in history. Apartheid was a satanic white supremacist system that made slavery in the 16th to 19th centuries look like a picnic. In eulogizing the exploits and accomplishment of greater athletes, Dr. Mandela's words had a deeper and broader meaning, enough for me to borrow and to use in this lecture to present sport beyond the cliché of unifying people. In 1993, Mandela was released from jail after serving 27 years out of a life sentence. In 1994, he was elected the first black president of a new South Africa. In 1995, South Africa hosted the Rugby World Cup, and as president, he attended the final match between South Africa and New Zealand. That afternoon of June 24, 1995, Mandela emerged from the underground tunnel of Ellis Park Stadium onto the bright sunshine of an arena with 62,000 spectators packed like sardines. A rainbow coalition of black, white, and colored people singing, dancing, and drumming together for the first time in a public place. The entire stadium was chanting, "Nelson, Nelson, Nelson," the name of a once demonized man who became the most loved and first elected black president of South Africa. It was a scene viewed on television by over 3 billion humans around the world. It could have been a scene straight out of a fictional movie titled The Impossible. A South Africa of such coloration was once inconceivable until that moment. Even Nelson Mandela must have stirred in disbelief at what sport manifested on that day. A rugby national team that united sworn enemies, birthed a new country, and showcased the possibility of a new world order. So, to describe sport as capable of changing the world must be taken seriously. It was one of the first global public proclamations of the power of sport as a global tool that can change the world. Before then, crises had either blessed or bedeviled sport around the world for decades. The first, in my personal experience, was the temporary cessation of the brutal 3 years Nigerian Civil War in 1968. It is documented in some history literature that the fighting between the troops of Nigeria and Biafra stopped temporarily to allow the soldiers of both armies to listen to the radio commentaries of the two matches involving Santos FC of Brazil, led by legendary Pelé, the most popular athlete in the world at the time, and Bendel Insurance FC in Benin, and Nigeria's national team, the Green Eagles, in Lagos. Another event, also in my experience, is one that almost shattered the myth that sport is immune from the vagaries of politics. The Olympic movement, probably the largest and most powerful organization in the world, was rattled by politics. It happened in 1976. But it was former United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Dr. Andrew Young, that connected the dots of the historic events from 1976 leading to 2000 and put Nelson Mandela's great speech in Monte Carlo in proper perspective. During a visit to Nigeria, Ambassador Young was reported to have said that but for the sacrifice made by African athletes in 1976, apartheid would not have ended when it did. That Nelson Mandela would not have been released from jail when he was. That South Africa would not have elected a black president when it did. And that the Rugby World Cup would not have taken place in South Africa and united the country the way it did. All of this happened mainly because some athletes sacrificed their personal ambition and dreams in 1976. But what happened? To amplify what happened, 2 years ago, a wall of fame was constructed inside the premises of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs in Lagos, Nigeria, in reference to the 1976 event. On the wall are the names of the Nigerian athletes that gave up their ambition to become Olympians in order to respond to a directive by the presidents of 27 African countries, led by Tanzania's Julius Nyerere and Nigeria's Olusegun Obasanjo. One day before the start of the Olympic Games in Montreal, Canada, the athletes were instructed to boycott the Games should the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, fail to expel New Zealand from the Games for disregarding the global isolation of South Africa and for engaging in a rugby match with the apartheid regime shortly before the Games. The IOC insisted they would not expel New Zealand because rugby, which was the sport in question, was not an Olympic event. Africa, however, stood its ground, and the IOC threw out all the athletes from the 27 protesting African countries, plus Iran and Guyana that joined in sympathy, from the Games village. The devastated African athletes became the pawns in this unprecedented political diplomacy power play. I was one of the young Nigerian athletes that were sent packing from the Games village that day and left to manage the psychological and physical damage done to our dreams of becoming Olympic gods, only to end up forgotten for 47 years on the tarmac of history. That 1976 boycott was the start of a series of political interferences in sports. The next two Olympics in Moscow in 1980 and Los Angeles in 1984 suffered similar fates and became pawns of the global political chess game between the superpowers at the time. After 1984, the world realized the unprecedented damage being done to the youths of the world and to the most unifying activity known to man. The world had to quickly reset the buttons of the Olympic spirit in order to bring back sanity to the Olympic movement, to the Olympic Games, and to sport in general. Since then, every country in the world has avoided tampering with the sanctity of sports as a unifier of the world, a catalyst for dousing tensions, for creating friendships, for peace and conflict resolution. Just for the records, our sacrifice of the 1976 sports boycott, the first in Olympic history, was eventually remembered. The Nigerian athletes were reunited again some 2 years ago after 47 years in limbo. We were lavishly celebrated and rewarded on July 28, 2023 by Air Peace Airline and the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, NIIA. All our names are now written on marble on that special wall of fame in Lagos in everlasting testimony to the power of sport to change the course of history. So Nelson Mandela was right. From Monte Carlo in the year 2000, Mandela's words kept engaging my head. Was the power of sport restricted to politics only? Can't it be deployed to impact other sectors? The questions kept running through my head. Remember that my worldview was limited to my experiences as a football player for Nigeria. Some years after I ended my sports career, more by accident than by design, I ventured into the world of sports media, sustaining a weekly column in a newspaper that I wrote even as an active athlete since 1978. In 1985, I became part owner of Nigeria's first all-sports newspaper. It was my baptism into a new world in sport beyond that of an active athlete and politics. Sports and the media are Siamese twins, inseparable. Within a few years, I expanded into the wider spectrum of TV and radio, becoming some sort of an authority by always adding the invaluable athlete's experience and perspectives to analysis. Some years later, it was not surprising when the School of African Studies at Harvard University in the USA invited me as a resource person, along with 4 other experts drawn from different countries in Africa, for a discourse on the sports business in Africa. To be considered an expert was a clear demonstration of how far behind Africa lagged in the global sports industry. Me, an expert? I managed to bluff my way through the program. I actually knew little about the real business of sport, but the experience was a wake-up call. I took away useful information and lessons. The sports media industry, as a part of the global sports entertainment industry, was one of the most flourishing sectors in the world. Today, it reportedly has a conservative estimated value of some $2.5 trillion. But with Africa still in the doldrums and Nigeria not even scratching the surface. The media is another space that uses the power of sport to thrive outside politics. Beyond the entertainment industry, the further scope of sport is vast, a long chain of related and connected activities. You can go on and on. The sport business conversation was a window for me into yet another frontier of the power of sport to impact the world. One day, soon after my Harvard experience, I was invited by the Nigerian Heart Foundation, NHF, to help raise funds for a golf tournament in their work of creating awareness for a rampaging silent killer in Nigeria. 1 in every 5 Nigerians walking the streets was suffering from one heart-related disease or the other. Life expectancy amongst the largest black population on earth had plummeted to below 50 years of age. High blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, several forms of cancer were ravaging the people. I was shocked to learn about these things happening around me unnoticed. It was another eye-opening experience for me. The close connection between sport and health, of course, is a no-brainer. They go together, hand in hand. But I did not think or realize the magnitude of that connection until my work with the Nigerian Heart Foundation. I soon abandoned trying to raise funds for the foundation and started working instead closely to create public awareness about the prevalence of non-communicable diseases in Nigeria and by extension the rest of Africa. I was eventually appointed African Ambassador of Non-Communicable Disease Nigeria Alliance, followed shortly after as African Champion for Exercise is Medicine USA. Local responsibilities, but of global dimension and significance. To crown my sport and health experience, I was invited as a resource person to the 13th World Public Health Congress in Ethiopia to give a report on my work with the children in a sports school that I established in 2007 in response to another event that took place in 2004. The jigsaw puzzles were falling into place. Meanwhile, all of this was still scratching the surface of the connection between sport and health. One day, working with the Nigeria Heart Foundation and some professors of physical and health education from different countries in Africa and Canada on the campus of Jomo Kenyatta University in Nairobi, Kenya, we joined a group of town planners, environmentalists, and engineers working on the remodeling of the city of Mombasa on the Indian Ocean coastline of Kenya. What has sport got to do with town planning and city engineering? That was the question I asked myself as we sat down for the meeting. Our contribution was in identifying and designing locations within the city for sport and leisure activities, for lanes for running and for cycling, recreational parks, the no-car zones, sports infrastructure areas, etc. How to make the city a healthier place for the citizens to live, to reduce air pollution and carbon footprints, block by block. It was a massive project and another eye-opener of the power of sport beyond politics to nursing and healing the environment and the world, village by village, city by city. The project screamed climate change, an existential threat to humanity as we speak. Sport and climate change, that's another dimension. It gets even more interesting. In the year 2004, I attended the first World Scholar Athlete Games in the University of Rhode Island, USA. It was a friendship games for students in secondary schools under the age of 17, drawn from over 150 countries. The United Nations Organization was involved in the games. Their representatives were there to introduce and promote the activities of a new special sports unit set up in the UN to drive aspects of the Millennium Development Goals agenda at the time. The UN's objectives did not even have the coloration of politics. The unit was to develop programs that will support the global fight against, hear this, illiteracy, poverty, hunger, unemployment, and diseases, particularly HIV/AIDS, in the world by the year 2050. This was taking sport to absolutely new dimensions, way outside the political struggles between the West and the East, between capitalism and communism, the ideological and cultural wars of civilization, between the world's superpowers, and so on. Sport had become a weapon to save the world in various ways, and through programs have been revealed in my personal experiences. Remember the genesis of all these things I'm saying. Nelson Mandela's speech stating that sport has the power to change the world. I could already see and experience the expanding scope, dimensions, and possibilities for making that a reality. Now, here was the United Nations getting involved, introducing sport for the first time as a tool beyond the regular unifying friendship and peace mantras. At adjacent seminars organized for participants during the Scholar Athlete Games, I sat, listened, and drank lavishly from the fountains of new knowledge from experts in various fields, exploring the potentials of sports as a weapon, if well deployed, to solve many hitherto intractable societal problems in the world. I listened to former President Bill Clinton on the final day. He spoke on sports as part of the globalization of humanity and ended with a final admonition for every one of us to be ready to make a difference in the world with our activities if we cannot, as individuals, change it. It was a great counsel. By the time I was leaving the USA in 2004, sport had become to me a serious agent that could take a shot at changing the world for good if well deployed. I decided to make it my mission for the rest of my life. Everything I'm going to say from now onwards here are the consequences of that my decision. Even my presentation here today is only therefore my personal testimony of my work along that line. I returned to Nigeria from my experience at URI, University of Rhode Island, in 2004, a totally different person. Straight away, I established a small specialized model sports secondary school in my village. It became my laboratory to research, to teach, to learn, to document the impact of various aspects of sport on young children. For example, what are the benefits or effects on children at an early age of certain foods, of intensive physical activity, of outdoor activities as against sitting behind computers for hours, of vigorous running, jumping, kicking, or even walking for hours, and so on. We also set out to build a model to tackle the issue of illiteracy, knowing that the most affected environment in the world, the area with the largest concentration of illiterates, between 13 and 18 million out of school children, incidentally, was in some parts of Nigeria, in northern Nigeria, an area facing compounding internal crises and conflicts. The challenge in those areas was in enrolling the children into schools, how to retain them in the schools, how to offer them a teaching methodology that will make learning easier and acceptable to their religion and culture, and provides a pathway into a future that fulfills their passion and talent and assures their success in life. Sport ticks all the boxes. A perfect tool, in my estimation, that could drive out illiteracy in such a difficult environment. But I needed to test and to prove it. I took my plan to Borno State. I met the governor. I told him my idea. I requested for 2 students that had been deprived of schooling by the Boko Haram insurgency or for religious or cultural reasons to be sent to my school as a test case. He sent 5 young boys. They were all 15 years old and in 3rd year of junior secondary school before they stopped schooling due to the crisis in Borno State. They could hardly speak any English, had no numeracy or literary skills, but were very passionate about their football and would do anything to play the game, including giving our educational plan a chance, despite initial fears of religious or cultural indoctrination. But the lure of sport swept aside all fears and apprehensions. They came to the special school located in a little village in the heart of Yoruba land for their sport and education. That's how Wasimi became their home for the next 3 years, as they went through the special sports and academic programs at senior secondary school level, with a teaching methodology from the UK for children with learning difficulty. They graduated 7 years ago. Since then, 3 of them have become university polytechnic graduates, completed their national youth service, and have become young leaders in their communities. To date, they are still involved at various levels of sport. Abdullahi Mohammed, Abdul Fattah Mohammed, Lawan Bukar, all alive and kicking today, have become ambassadors of the power of sport to eradicate illiteracy, to empower the youths with education or professional skills, and to become leaders in their communities. That path remains a veritable model called to see, to measure, and to adopt. Finally, 21 years ago, I set out on my most ambitious expedition yet. I'd studied the impact of sports in countries that host major international events. I proposed using sport to catalyze, facilitate, accelerate, and enforce the biggest and fastest infrastructural development program for the West African sub-region by West Africa hosting or bidding to host the first World Cup to be held in Africa in 2010. The idea was simple. More countries in the project would mean more collaboration, reduction in the burden of cost for a single country, and a wider spread of the benefits to more countries in the region. The 8 years of preparing to receive and host a visiting global community of at least 1 million sports fans over a 1-month period would change that region completely forever. It was too good to be true. Yet, sport had the power to achieve that and more. The evidence was all over other parts of the world, in China, in the UAE, in Europe and America. In these places, sport continues to expand its deployment for infrastructural, social, and economic development. West Africa would have fulfilled the over half a century-old dream of the founding political fathers as descendants of a powerful, united, and flourishing sub-region with a superhighway and rail system running from Dakar to Calabar, a single currency for the region, a borderless region with one visa requirement for all, a common security, immigration, and customs apparatus across the region, free trade and movement across also. That was my dream in 2003, 2004. I revived it again in 2024 for sports to lead in building a new West Africa through hosting the World Cup of 2030 or 2034. It did not find and has not found acceptance only because understanding and appreciating the power of sport to change the world has still not found ardent followers, particularly amongst the intelligentsia and big business that can drive it. So it remains on the tarmac, idling away. Well, it has become my life's mission to be an ambassador of spreading the message of the potency of sport to impact the world and possibly change it for good. It is not an easy road to travel, but I'm always encouraged by Bill Clinton's wise counsel. If you can't change the world, ensure you make a difference. That's what I'm doing here today. It's up to you to make of it what you will. Sport is connected to every aspect of life: science, technology, business, law, medicine, film, agriculture, tourism, media, health, leisure, hospitality, psychology, entertainment, environment, education, engineering, architecture, climate change, merchandising, manufacturing, and so on and so forth, in a relationship only limited by personal imagination and creativity. Once you can create it, you can achieve it through sports. As a university community, therefore, I urge you to look critically at the stories I have told you today about some of my personal experiences and be ready also to test them and go where no one has been and explore the endless possibilities in the power of sport, the most potent soft power tool on the planet that is connected to every aspect of our lives. The Madiba, Dr. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was right. Sport has the power to change the world. I rest my humble case.
Extended sale alert! Hooray! An extension offer to the ongoing London promotional fairs. You asked, we listened. Save over 600,000 naira on your London trip with Airpeace when you connect from our major domestic destinations to London at no extra cost and enjoy an exclusive extra baggage allowance. Economy class promo fares start from 1.2 million naira with an extra 23 kg baggage, while business class fares start from 4.5 million naira with an extra 32 kg baggage. Grab these special fares. Sale period extends till March 31st, 2025 and travel period valid till April 15th, 2025. Fly in style aboard our Boeing 777s with spacious seating and delightful meals. Book now at flyairpeace.com or download the Airpeace app from the Play Store or App Store. Airpeace, your peace is our goal.